Again, thank you and good afternoon. I am with the Federal Highway Administration and leading the ATTRI program, the Accessible Transportation Technologies Research Initiative. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So,
Coming through well.
good. Let me just give you some background. As we started to look to expand the ATTRI program, we had initially started to look into just the people with disabilities, but we were amazed as we started to broaden and look at the older adults, veterans with disabilities. Veterans are the wounded warriors who came from the recent wars. This became like a bigger challenge. You have a big chunk of our population having some or the other disability related challenges. I'm not going to go through all of the data points on this slide, but something that struck me and is still is a shocking data for me is the unemployment rate among people with disabilities, the poverty issues or the ratios as compared to people who don't have disabilities, and the spending that we are doing on disability benefits to the veterans. And the future, the numbers going to grow as more people get older. The disability rate rises, so 72 million by 2030. So as I said, as we combine all these numbers together, it became like a bigger pie, and we had to start to think of this. So what we were then looked into is if you just have the targeted population groups of persons with disabilities, veterans, the wounded warriors, and older adults, depending on which point we are looking at, the three targeted groups, they all have different needs, even if they are in the same functional disability type. And solutions are different, and the user needs are different. So we started to look into like taking it to another level, and that is like what are the needs in the vision, the mobility, hearing, and cognitive areas, and see what technology solutions could be paired with user needs within this different targeted groups and the functional disability types. And what is interesting is, as some of you may have already realized and known this, that among the four key functional disability types, the folks within the cognitive area are the most difficult, in my view, to design any solution. And this includes people who have autism, dementia, and any other cognitive disabilities. How could you define and design a system for someone who has a varying level of cognition, either depending on the day of the time of the day or where they are in the environment? And we did some more looking into the aspects of transportation and the impact on this group. And we learned that twice as many people say it is important for their daily living activities. And when we say this, we're just talking about travelers with disabilities. And 76% say it is something that is important for their job search. And about 1/3 of them say that it is a significant problem in retaining or gaining jobs, access to jobs. So that led to the creation of the ATTRI program about 4 to 5 years ago. And the vision is to remove barriers to transportation by leveraging advanced technology. And something that is interesting here is independently travel any time of the day to any destination. And this is, I mean, I use paratransit, and we have a lot of limitations on how we could use that. It'd be really great to see a system that works any time of the day to any destination at some point. Um, Over the years, what we are happy to see is that this program initially came out of the Federal Highway Administration, but we found a lot of key partners both within the U.S. DOT and outside of our agency. So we now have support from the Federal Transit Administration within DOT, the Intelligent Transportation Systems Joint Program Office, which is under the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Research and Technology. We had also worked very closely with the Office of the Secretary within the US DOT. And as I mentioned, we also have cooperation from others such as NIDLR, NIDILRR. It is a disability-centric research institute. Some of you may be aware of that. Agency is HHS. We are also working with Department of Labor. We have in the past also worked with Access Board, U.S. Army, and others on this initiative. So let me back up a little bit. So as we're trying to think of solutions that we could bring forward, what we want to do is to take a deliberate approach to understand the user needs first. And we had done quite a bit of stakeholder engagement. We've been to a number of conferences, did listening sessions and such, specifically to understand the user needs for persons with disabilities, veterans, and older adults. We had over 1,000 people participate, gave us comments. So it was really a very extensive effort to understand the user needs. We have also done a state of the practice, a technology scan and research assessment, not just the technology in transportation area, but also to see innovations in other verticals and domains. The idea was to see if we could bring in any other solution from any other technology or domain to transportation. And what we did then is to bring all of this learning. We had a request for information on the street where we received some very interesting application areas. We brought all of these, as I said, into like a 2-day public workshop. And what you see on this slide is based on the priorities or the vote or the preferences given by our stakeholders in that 2-day workshop. Two key things here that I like to point to. One is up at the top, you see almost like a capsule-like graphic foundational consideration. This is something that we took it to heart, and for anything that we are procuring, any of the contract documents that we have on the street, had these basic elements as a key consideration of any ATTRI application. The idea is to be able to have these foundational considerations such that applications are designed with the universal design concept in mind, and to have inclusive information communication technology solutions such that all disability types are able to interact with the system and the environments that will be built using the ATTRI platform. So we have a focus on the accessible data platform. How could we standardize the data elements, the needs that we have for this population, the universal design um, standards, and this also includes the ICT element in it. And then integrated payment systems or the inclusive payment systems, not just for different disability types, but something that could also be cross modes. We don't have a system like that now, so a big focus is also on how to make the fair payments inclusive or as inclusive as possible, and to rely on technologies that already exist, leveraging existing technologies. Just use that to the extent possible. Don't create something new if you don't have to. From a policy point of view, I feel like this has been a key, learning for us. And as I said, in any of the contracts that we had, or the requests for proposals that we had on the street, we had included a language around this area and encouraged our proposing teams to pay attention to this. At the bottom are the four key application areas. The smart wayfinding and navigation systems is a system that could cover both the indoor and the outdoor from the pedestrian point of view, and how could we leverage wearable technologies, smartphones, smartwatches, and such. But we also presented a community navigator idea, something that will help you to bring in elements that allow you for pedestrian level wayfinding and navigation. When we did the listening sessions, we had also heard from people about a concierge system, a buddy system. So that led to creation of the pre-trip concierge and virtualization. What we hope to do here is to give information before and after a trip en route as well, and connect travelers with their caregivers, their family members, almost like a virtual tool, that help you to have like a ecosystem to connect you from point A to point B, but also keep your support system or your care system informed. Robotics and automation. What we sense is that there has been a lot of focus on automation or connected or automated vehicles. But I think the ATTRI population could benefit from the use of robots along with automation. So how could we bring in assistive and collaborative robots to enhance mobility? Not only for say like a physical movement of people, but also to see how information anatomy could be used to give you key guidance during travel. The last application area is the safe intersection crossing. We have seen a lot of applications on intersection crossing, but we didn't find applications which meet the needs of the user group that we had in mind. So this application area is something we are hoping would give you situational awareness or to localize you in a environment or a new environment and give you context based information, provide guidance and notifications and such, not only to you as a pedestrian, but to vehicles and other devices. What this really helped us is to start to put this concept of a complete trip together, not just a piece of the travel, but how could we um, connect different segments or elements of travel. So a person with disability could have all accessible, all elements together from their origin to destination, um, before and after and in between. So it is the whole complete trip. And how could we then, use technology to make this possible? So what I had shown you in this slide is kind of was the concept maybe 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. And then the complete trip scenario came in with that. But what I'm happy to uh, talk about is that as we brought in the complete trip scenario, we had two different requests for proposals on the street. One which just focused on wayfinding and navigation, pre-trip and safe intersection crossing. This request for proposal from the Federal Highway Administration covered these three areas. The robotics and automation area was covered through a different competition through our partner Neidler, which is housed under HHS. We had received several proposals, and we were able to make 6 different awards to 6 different teams. And on the slide now, you see the technologies that were funded. And we had a technology, at least in each of the application areas that I talked about a few moments ago. So under wayfinding and navigation, we have 4 different teams. They are all working on a different technology solution, but all related to wayfinding and navigation. But these solutions are also a bit focused on a functional disability type. So very briefly, like City College of New York is working on a solution for low vision or people with vision disabilities to have a smart cane, almost a robotic application integrated with their white cane and a smartphone. The City College of New York team has also worked in an earlier grant on using SLAM, the simultaneous localization and mapping technique that is used in defense, to see how that could be used for wayfinding and navigation. Interestingly, we use the Google Tango platform for this application. Moving to the right, AbleLink is working on an open wayfinding media standard. This application area, along with focusing on vision, is also something that is heavily looking into the needs of cognitive disabilities. Pathway Solutions is a wayfinding tool for wheelchair users and also vision related disabilities. But this team is looking into creating an accessibility index of some kind that gives you the ease or the use of one route versus the other, but mostly from a wheelchair user. So this could be the roughness, of your surface, or the grade of a ramp, entry points into building. TRX systems, another team working on a real-time localization and in-route support system. What they are working on is a combination of Bluetooth beacons, but also ultra-wideband. And what we have found in our literature review so far is that there's a lot of applications using BLEs or the Bluetooth beacons, but we haven't seen much application using ultra-wideband. So where, like I work at the Turner Fairbank Highway Research Center, we have recently deployed a part of the solution here to do some A to B comparisons and see what a different combination of the Bluetooth ultra-wide beacons would look like from a deployment point of view, but with different scenarios in mind. I'm going to move along, and hopefully we'll have time to talk about this some more because there's just a lot of detail. But just to keep the time here, the pre-trip concierge, we have AbleLink again working on a suite of assessment, self-directed learning tools that somebody with cognitive disabilities be able to take before the trip and be able to plan. And then there is another app that helps you to save your trip into like something that is visual or something that gives you the 3D environment to have a framework for you. Under the safe intersection crossing application area, we have the Carnegie Mellon University team working to connect pedestrians to the traffic signal system. I mean, there were other applications like this, but mostly using the smartphones. But this is like a heavy lift trying to understand connectivity to our traffic signal control systems, and also to bring in transit data or the bus data into the safe intersection crossing application. And I mentioned about the robotics and automation. This was again an award out of NIDLR. With this competition, we had to recompete twice, but we have a new team in Carnegie Mellon working on this to provide robotic solutions in transportation hubs. Unlike the other 16s, the robotic effort here by Carnegie Mellon University is a 5-year effort. The other 6 are anywhere between 2 to 3 years in duration. So this just so we try to see how the complete scenario would work with the technology teams that we have. And I should also make mention that as we were making the grants, we were very careful to select application teams or technology teams that helped to realize the complete trip vision that we had in mind. And we are happy to see that the teams that we have in place now will at least be able to attempt to do that. I'm not going to go through or describe this slide in detail, but the point being that, from where like clockwise from 1 to 2 to 5, This just gives you like how someone will use the ATTRI application areas, starting with the pre-trip concierge application to plan their whole trip, to using an element, either the automated shuttle or the bus or something to get from point A to point B. So in terms of what we have in the pipeline, so this is the ATTRI way forward. Where we are right now is in kind of the phase 2, the application selection and the prototyping. This again, as I said, depending on which application type we have, there is a 2-year to a 5-year span of activities. Then we want to do what we are calling the integrated demonstrations and pilots. That is something that is reflective of the complete trip. And we are going to work with our existing partners, but we also hope to have other partners. We fully realize that this vision is not going to be possible with DOT alone, so we need more partners to realize this vision. So a few things to be stay engaged with this effort. We have a Friends of ATTRI. I will bring up a URL to our website, but you could sign up to receive. We don't bombard with emails, just so you know. You will only get a message from us when there is a key announcement or something major to share with our stakeholders. We talk about the ATTRI webinar series here. We have done 4 different webinars on each of the ATTRI application areas. We have one more webinar on the robotics and automation area coming up. I think sometime in March. We don't have a firm date yet. But again, if you go to the ATTRI website, the recordings of the earlier webinars are on it, and you will also know when to register for the last webinar that we are planning. We thrived on feedback from our stakeholders. So again, we encourage you to participate and give feedback on any of the ATTRI technology development. And like I said, we want to collaborate on future ATTRI activities. So this is kind of the ATTRI US DOT team, and up at the bottom is the ATTRI website, or you could just Google ATTRI. That should bring you to our website. So with that, I think I'm going to pause and see if you have any questions and comments.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks, Mohammed. That's really good. I did have a question. I'll start and then pass it on to others. Are you working with the GCTC directly yet? I mean, a number of the projects that you have might fit with the concept of a sort of action cluster. Are you working with NIST and the GCTC?
Not really on any of the ATTRI applications. Like, in fact, it was good that I was able to attend part of your event, early part of February, and I was going to actually send you a separate email to see if you could put us in touch with a few other folks. I think the whole DHS, they I think have a competition which is similar to the wayfinding application areas that we have. And like I said, again, I heard a lot of things during the February meet that it'd be good to connect with and start a dialogue, more formally.
Yeah, I think so. And I would like to talk to you about, the projects that you have in flight and if they fit with some of the action cluster, and if there's stuff here that we can put into our blueprint. Obviously, accessibility is an important part of an overall transportation plan. So if we can find a way to benefit one another and to help move the state of the art forward, that would be excellent.
Yeah. If I may also add, as part of like the foundational research, we have some good reports that are public now, and we are also waiting on one other report on institution policy, and impacts of accessibility and new technologies. So please also use us as a resource. It took us a lot of work to get to where we are, from like the institutional knowledge and such.
That sounds good. I did post into the chat another link, which is the link to the main page of this group, which includes a link to a catalog, and you'll see how we're listing the action clusters. It just gives people a place to understand what's going on. So there may be some of your projects may fit in there quite well, and we could talk about how to get there. Other questions for Mohammed?
Mohammed, hi, this is Ann Marcus. I'm with Cisco. I was looking at that last slide that you had on the phased timing, and I'm wondering if you could back up to that for 1 second. I missed seeing something on there, and I just wanted to take a look real quick and just see what the. Are you working currently with specific technology companies on development of applications at this time? Or I should ask, which phase are you in right now? You're in phase 1 still? Is that where you are?
So yeah. So we, as I mentioned, we have 6, and if you also include the Neidler grant, we have 7 different teams, technology teams working on different technologies. We are in year 1 of the technology development.
Okay.
Some teams are way like ahead. As you would imagine, compared to the other teams. We have APIs or a couple of APIs that we hope to be available by the June timeframe. So we are kind of in a gated approach, So June is our gate 1, and then we will then get to the gate 2, which will be another 12 to 24 months.
Okay, got it.
Mohammed, would it be possible to get a copy of your slides?
They're already on the web, Ken. If you go to that link that I just put into the chat, you'll see them there.
Great, thank you.
Other questions?
I guess I do have one other question, and that is that it's wonderful that you're working at the federal level. Are there different, and I apologize if you talked about this, I had to step out for a second, so you may have covered this, but are there interactions at the state level bubbling up to the federal level with maybe different areas of the country have projects that are further along? I'm just curious if that's something that's part of the project.
So yeah, that's exactly the point of like coming to forums like this and other areas to see if at all like there is like that level of interaction from the state level. And very soon we are going to look into our like demonstration piece of this and to see which partners and who we can work with, So if you have any ideas and connections along that line, appreciate if you could just send me an email with that.
Sure.
Hello, Mohammed, Nestor here. I was wondering regarding what you just mentioned in terms of partnering and piloting, is there going to be any open call or something? And is it going to be published, or we have to send you an email just to settle a further contact?
No, I mean there is going to be a public announcement of some kind, when we do that, and seek proposals towards that. I just don't know, don't have like a firm time in mind. Some of that, as I mentioned, depends on the level of technologies, the development, and the maturity of some of what we have in the pipeline already.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? This was a great presentation, Mohammed. I really appreciate it. It's we now have the material on the web. I will post the audio because I think it's beneficial. Also in the same place on the web. So hopefully everybody got what they needed here. I appreciate it, Mohammed. We'll talk afterwards on how do we coordinate between the GCTC and what you're doing with ATTRI.
Appreciate that. Certainly, we love to do that. And would this be a good time to talk about the Portland? I just like to have a little bit more understanding of what to expect and how maybe we can participate.